Welcome to our channel, where we uncover hidden treasures and dive deep into the fascinating world of rare coins and collectibles. And today's journey is one that's truly captivating, as we explore the extraordinary story of the 1960 Lincoln 1-cent coin, a small copper piece that, through a series of minting mishaps, historical quirks, and collector enthusiasm, has reached values as high as $50,000. Making it one of the most surprising and lucrative pieces in American numismatics. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this humble penny has become a symbol of how mistakes at the US Mint can turn ordinary change into a numismatic jackpot, and what specific traits you need to look for if you hope to uncover one of these ultra-valuable coins in your own pocket change or coin collection. Because while most 1960 pennies are worth face value or just a few cents more depending on condition, a small fraction of them, thanks to a fascinating combination of errors, varieties, and historical context, have become the stuff of coin collector legend, especially the famous 1960 small date variety which ignited a frenzy among collectors shortly after its discovery, not only due to its rarity but also because of the confusion and excitement caused by the existence of both small date and large date versions minted in Denver that year, which was already unusual given that in most years only one design variation is produced, and to fully grasp the magnitude of this coin's value, we need to dive into the specifics of the design changes, where the difference between the small date and large date primarily lies in the typography of the date on the obverse, with the small date version featuring a more delicate, compact 0 and 6 with the top of the 6 almost level with the 9, whereas the large date version has a bolder and taller font. And while that may seem like a minor design change, the circumstances surrounding the production of both types at the Denver Mint are what elevate this coin's status, especially when it comes to double die errors and repunched mint marks, because while the US Mint attempted to correct or improve the dies used during this era, multiple hubbings and hurried production schedules led to significant die varieties, most notably the 1960 small date over large date, a transitional error where elements of both types appear on a single coin, which was once misinterpreted by collectors as an entirely new discovery and triggered intense speculation and market demand, pushing prices upward in a short period, and when coupled with repunched mint marks, where the D for Denver was punched more than once into the die, resulting in visible doubling under magnification, you get a coin that's not only visually distinct but also of immense interest to those who understand how such varieties come to be. Because every mint mark used to be hand-punched, meaning slight misalignments or multiple strikes were not only possible but actually fairly common in the era before automated mint mark application began in the 1980s. Yet in the case of the 1960 small date Lincoln cent, the specific way the repunched mint marks occurred, combined with the transition between date sizes and the doubling on some dies, creates a perfect storm for rarity. And let's not forget that errors don't only make a coin rare. They often tell a story about the conditions at the mint, the technology used, and the people involved, and in this case, the Denver Mint was under pressure in 1960 to produce an unusually high volume of coins to meet increasing demand due to economic growth, inflationary pressures, and the rising cost of metal, all of which meant that quality control sometimes suffered as quantity became the top priority. And in that environment, it's not surprising that so many interesting varieties came into existence. But what makes the 1960 small date particularly compelling is the way in which collectors responded to it shortly after its discovery, with numismatists and hobbyists across the country scrambling to identify the differences and hoard the rarer version, creating what is now considered one of the early modern coin collecting crazes, reminiscent of the 1955 double-die penny or the 1936 DDO. And while values for most of the 1960 small date cents are moderate, only reaching a few $100s in top condition, there are examples that reach far higher valuations when additional errors are present, particularly when the coin features strong doubling, sharp details, minimal contact marks, and bright original luster, and in rare cases, examples graded MS67 or higher by professional grading services such as PCGS or NGC with full red coloration and strong strike characteristics can command tens of thousands of dollars at auction. Especially if the coin also includes repunched mint mark characteristics or other die anomalies like die cracks, die chips, or even retained cut breaks, all of which add to a coin's story and uniqueness. And it's this combination of visual error, rarity of occurrence, and historical context that collectors are willing to pay a premium for, because in the end, collecting is not just about possession, it's about owning a piece of history. And when that history includes human error, rushed production, changing design elements, and a passionate response from the collector community, the result is a coin like the 1960D small date Lincoln cent that defies its humble origins to become a highly sought-after collectible worth more than its weight in gold. And to understand the full landscape of 1960D errors, we also need to consider the broader set of varieties cataloged by numismatists using systems like the Cherry Picker's Guide, which documents numerous RPMs and DDOs associated with the 1960D issue. And each of these has its own subtle diagnostic markers, be it doubling on the date, the lettering in Liberty, or In God We Trust, or the profile of Lincoln himself, or specific shifts in the D mint mark that show clear evidence of hand punching at slightly different angles or depths, and collectors have spent decades cataloging these varieties, with some being so scarce that only a handful of verified examples exist, creating intense demand and often friendly rivalry among collectors trying to build the most complete and highest quality registry sets possible. And if that wasn't enough, you also have proof-like strikes or satin finishes occasionally surfacing from special production runs, further increasing the value of already rare varieties. And while many casual observers may assume a penny is just a penny, it's in these small distinctions, often only visible under 10x magnification or higher, that fortunes can be made. And every time a collector finds an overlooked RPM or doubled die on a 1960D coin, especially in uncirculated or near-perfect condition, it reinforces the value of deep knowledge, sharp eyes, and a willingness to dig through rolls or attend auctions. And for those just getting started, identifying a true 1960D small date begins with learning the typography differences and using online resources, comparison charts, or third-party graders to validate finds. But even among authenticated small date cents, condition plays a huge role in determining market value. With bright red coins that show no signs of wear or toning being far more valuable than their brown or red-brown counterparts, and as the population of such coins remains low due to circulation wear and poor preservation in earlier decades, each high-grade specimen becomes more desirable, and every time one crosses the auction block, especially if it's certified by PCGS or NGC in a high mint state with red designation and perhaps with a CAC sticker for eye appeal, it sends ripples through the collecting community, inspiring others to search their change, re-examine their old collections, or buy sealed rolls in the hopes of finding one. And while not every roll will yield treasure, the possibility is very real, because these coins are still out there, perhaps tucked away in a forgotten jar, hidden in an inherited collection, or resting unnoticed in a dealer's bin. And that's part of the enduring mystique of the 1960D small date penny, a coin born from production necessity and error, which transformed over time into a modern legend of American numismatics. And as demand continues to grow, and awareness spreads, particularly among new collectors entering the hobby through YouTube channels, online forums, and social media, the value of premium examples is likely to continue rising. And who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover one of these rare cents and turn a single penny into a $50,000 story that starts with curiosity, a magnifying glass, and just a little bit of luck. So stay tuned and keep searching, because the next big find could be in your pocket. And now, continuing our deep dive into the world of valuable Lincoln cents, let's turn our attention to another fascinating and high-value anomaly that has captivated collectors and sparked the imaginations of coin enthusiasts everywhere: the rare and mysterious 1973D Lincoln 1 cent, a coin that under normal circumstances would be worth just a single penny. But due to a highly unusual mint error and extraordinary circumstances, certain examples have been known to fetch prices as high as $35,000 or more, and once again we find ourselves unraveling the layers of history, human error, minting technology, and collector obsession that have turned this small copper coin into an object of intense desire and value. And to understand why a 1973 cent could command such a high price, we need to start with the basics and then delve into the realm of minting mistakes and numismatic intrigue. Because unlike more well-known collectible issues such as the 1909 SVDB or the 1955 double die, the 1973 Lincoln Cent's value does not stem from intentional design elements or public awareness at the time of its circulation, but rather from the deeply hidden and extremely rare off-metal strikes and wrong planchet errors that occurred during production. And this particular cent becomes especially valuable when it is discovered to have been mistakenly struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination altogether, such as a US dime, a foreign coin blank, or in one astonishing and confirmed case, on an aluminum planchet from experimental production, which should never have made it out of the mint in the first place. And this is where things get interesting, because in the early 1970s, the U.S. Mint was actively experimenting with alternative metals due to rising copper prices and inflationary concerns. Exploring options to replace the traditional bronze composition of the Lincoln cent with something more cost-effective and durable, and in 1973, multiple test strikes were made using aluminum planchets, with the intention of presenting them to Congress for evaluation and possible future circulation, and although the project was eventually scrapped, and the aluminum cents were supposed to have been destroyed, a tiny handful managed to escape destruction, most notably from the Philadelphia Mint. But rumors and collector findings suggest that at least one example was struck at the Denver Mint, even though officially none should exist, and this leads to the infamous and virtually mythical 1973 Lincoln cent struck on an aluminum planchet, a coin so rare and so controversial that its very existence has been debated among experts for decades, yet enough evidence has surfaced to suggest that this error may indeed exist, and if so, its value is almost immeasurable due to its extreme rarity and the legal and historical questions it raises. And even outside of the aluminum error, other significant wrong planchet errors have been discovered from the Denver Mint. In 1973, including cents struck on dime planchets made of copper nickel, which are much thinner and lighter than a normal cent planchet and produce coins that are both visually and physically distinct, immediately drawing the attention of trained collectors and graders. And when one of these coins is found in high grade, meaning it escaped significant circulation wear, retained original luster, and avoided major contact marks, the combination of rarity, novelty, and condition can drive auction prices well into the tens of thousands, as seen with certain examples that have sold for $30,000 to $35,000 or more, particularly when accompanied by certification from trusted grading companies such as PCGS or NGC confirming their off-metal composition and origin, and because these coins are the product of an extraordinary series of events. Wrong blank in the coining chamber, successful strike without rejection by mint quality control, and eventual escape into the general public's hands, they are seen as both numismatic miracles and snapshots of a fascinating historical moment in U.S. mint operations, and their scarcity cannot be overstated, because while minor errors such as die chips, filled dies, or minor doubling are relatively common and usually only command modest premiums, a genuine wrong planchet error from the Denver Mint in 1973, particularly one struck on an aluminum or dime planchet, is on another level entirely, both in terms of rarity and value, and let's not forget that the Mint's records and policies at the time were far more lax than they are today, meaning that errors could, and did, occasionally slip through unnoticed, especially if they appeared visually similar to standard coins or were mixed into bags before detailed inspection could occur. And with millions upon millions of coins being produced each day, it's not surprising that an error or two could sneak by. But what is surprising and thrilling for collectors is that such coins could still be found today, sitting unrecognized in a personal collection, misidentified in a dealer's bin, or languishing in an old family piggy bank. And because of that, there's always a sense of excitement and potential surrounding the 1973 Lincoln cent, as even ordinary-looking examples could turn out to be extraordinary upon closer inspection, especially if the weight is off, the metal content is different, or the coin exhibits unusual thickness, coloring, or dimensions, all of which are hallmarks of an off-metal or wrong planchet strike. And given the extremely limited number of these coins confirmed to exist, every authenticated piece becomes an instant headline maker and a prized addition to any serious collection. And as awareness continues to grow within the numismatic community thanks to online videos, collector forums, and increased educational content, interest in era coins like the 1973D aluminum cent or other off-metal variants continues to rise, meaning that values are likely to appreciate even further in the future, especially as surviving examples are either locked away in private collections or traded among high-end collectors and investors at ever-increasing prices. And much like the legendary 1943 bronze cent or the 1944 steel cent, the 1973D off-metal eras stand as powerful reminders that the most valuable coins are often those that were never meant to exist, born of accidents, oversight, or experimentation, and surviving only through incredible luck, perseverance, and the unrelenting curiosity of collectors who refuse to stop searching. And for anyone who dreams of discovering a six-figure penny in circulation, the story of the 1973D Lincoln cent offers not just hope, but a real-world example of how seemingly impossible discoveries can and do happen. And while the odds are slim, every coin you check, every roll you search, every old jar of change you examine could be the one that holds a coin worth $35,000 or more. So whether you're a seasoned collector or just getting started, always keep your eyes open for odd weights, strange colors, thin edges, or mismatched features, because the next legendary discovery could very well begin with a simple penny that was never meant to be. And now, continuing our exploration into the incredible world of Lincoln cents that have achieved astonishing values thanks to rare errors, experimental strikes, and highly limited circulation, we move forward just 1 year to another legendary and highly sought-after issue, the 1974 Lincoln 1-cent coin, a seemingly ordinary penny that, in some astonishing cases, has been valued at up to $30,000 or more, and as with the 1973D and other era coins, the story behind the 1974 cent is not just about minting, it's a fascinating snapshot of monetary history, political controversy, economic uncertainty, and the U.S. Mint's desperate search for cost-effective solutions during a time of rising inflation and soaring metal prices, because in the early 1970s, the U.S. government was facing immense pressure to reduce the cost of coinage, particularly the Lincoln cent, which by 1973 to 74 was becoming increasingly expensive to produce due to the rising cost of copper, and in response to this, the U.S. Mint began actively exploring alternatives to the traditional bronze alloy used since the early 1960s, ultimately settling on aluminum as the most promising substitute due to its lightweight properties, low cost, and abundant availability, and thus, in 1974, the Philadelphia Mint struck approximately 1.5 million test coins using a new aluminum alloy composed of 95% aluminum and 5% trace elements. And these were never intended for general circulation but rather as test strikes and presentation pieces for members of Congress, allowing them to examine the coin's potential in daily commerce. And while the idea seemed promising at first, the aluminum cent quickly ran into unexpected problems, as many in the medical and vending machine industries raised strong objections, citing concerns that aluminum coins would be too lightweight for coin-operated machines and would be difficult to detect on X-rays in the event of accidental ingestion, an issue that concerned pediatricians and emergency room professionals alike, leading to a heated debate that ultimately caused the project to be scrapped in 1975, and all of the aluminum cents were ordered to be destroyed. Yet as history has repeatedly shown us, when the Mint decides to destroy a coin, there's always a chance that a few will slip through the cracks, and that is exactly what appears to have happened with the 1974 aluminum cent. Because despite official statements that all examples were melted down, several have surfaced over the years, some in private hands, others surfacing at estate sales, auctions, or even passed down through families of former Mint employees, and in one of the most widely reported cases, a 1974 aluminum cent believed to have originated from the Denver Mint appeared in the possession of a former Mint employee's son, who claimed his father had received the coin as a memento. And this specific coin created a legal firestorm, as the U.S. government considered it stolen property and demanded its return, even as the collector community rallied behind the owner's right to retain and sell the coin, with experts valuing it at $250,000 or more due to its extreme rarity, historical significance, and unique composition. But even outside of that high-profile Denver example, several 1974 aluminum cents struck at the Philadelphia Mint have surfaced and become the subject of intense collector interest. And because none of these coins were officially released, any genuine 1974 aluminum cent in private hands is considered both an ultra-rarity and a piece of contested federal property, further adding to its allure and mystique. And while it's true that the government has pursued the return of known specimens, that has not stopped examples from being privately sold or changing hands discreetly among elite collectors, with conservative estimates placing the value of an authenticated specimen in the $30,000 to $100,000 range depending on condition, provenance, and legal status. But the 1974 cent story doesn't end with aluminum, because during this same period, the Mint was also experimenting with other planchet types and producing a wide range of errors, including cents struck on foreign coin blanks, dime planchets, or with significant off-center strikes, double denominations, and broad strikes. And while these are less rare than the aluminum cent, certain examples, particularly those in high grade and with eye-catching visual characteristics, have still sold for $10,000 to $30,000 at major auctions, particularly when certified by PCGS, NGC, or annexed and accompanied by a strong backstory or photographic evidence of the coin's discovery. And what makes the 1974 Lincoln cent particularly appealing to error collectors is the sheer number of variations that year due to the intense experimentation and transition happening at the Mint, meaning that even among ordinary-looking coins, there exists the possibility of dramatic and valuable anomalies, and one of the most compelling categories includes transitional errors, where coins were struck using planchets intended for a different year or alloy, such as bronze planchets that slipped into the production process despite the transition to aluminum for testing, and vice versa, resulting in a number of coins that, while bearing the 1974 date, are composed of unexpected metals, leading to some of the most exciting finds in modern numismatics. And savvy collectors can often identify these pieces by their unusual weight, since aluminum cents weigh significantly less than bronze cents, as well as their color and sound. And for those who suspect they've found one, a simple weight test using a digital gram scale can reveal whether the coin matches the 3.11 g standard of a bronze cent or the 0.93 g weight of an aluminum one. And any major deviation should immediately raise eyebrows and trigger further investigation through non-destructive testing and third-party authentication, because if confirmed, such a coin could represent one of the few surviving examples of a controversial and politically charged moment in Mint history. And while the U.S. Mint has never publicly acknowledged the exact number of surviving aluminum cents from 1974, the numismatic community widely believes fewer than 24 may exist today, making them rarer than many of the most famous key-date coins. And each time one surfaces, it reignites debate about the government's role in collecting, the legality of owning such pieces, and the fascinating question of how many more could still be out there waiting to be discovered, perhaps tucked into a child's coin collection from the 1970s, mislabeled in a box at a flea market, or forgotten in a shoebox full of change from a now-deceased Mint employee. And because of this, the 1974 Lincoln cent remains one of the most electrifying and talked about coins in the entire Lincoln series, not only for what it represents in terms of rarity and value, but for its broader implications about secrecy, experimentation, and the unintentional treasures that emerge when bureaucracy and innovation collide. So if you're ever going through a handful of old pennies and one feels suspiciously light, silvery in color, or off in texture or tone, don't ignore it. Because you just might be holding a six-figure mistake that rewrites the history of U.S. coinage and secures your place in the annals of numismatic legend, all starting with a single 1974 cent worth up to $30,000 or more. And as we continue our incredible journey through the hidden world of Lincoln cents that have skyrocketed in value due to rare minting errors, overlooked anomalies, and extraordinary circumstances, we now shift our focus to yet another jaw-dropping coin that many casual collectors wouldn't think twice about, until they realize that a specific version of it has been sold for as much as $26,000. And that coin is none other than the 1978 Lincoln 1 cent, a copper coin that in most cases is only worth its face value, but in very rare instances, due to certain minting mistakes and nearly impossible to replicate circumstances, has entered the elite ranks of high-value modern U.S. coinage. And to truly appreciate why anyone would pay thousands for a coin struck in one of the most heavily produced years in Lincoln cent history, we have to understand the context of that year, the nature of the minting errors involved, and why so few of these high-value specimens have ever been confirmed. Because in 1978, the U.S. Mint was in full production mode, striking hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints using the traditional bronze composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin, just before the switch to copper-plated zinc in 1982, and in this final stretch of the copper era. Millions of coins were produced with aging equipment, and under mounting pressure to meet federal demand, which created the perfect storm for minting errors, particularly in the Denver Mint, where quality control standards sometimes slipped due to volume pressures, leading to a small number of coins being released with dramatic and highly collectible errors, and among these, the most famous and valuable is the 1978 D Lincoln cent with a bold double die obverse, an error in which elements of the design, particularly the date, the word liberty, and the motto I in God we trust, appear to be visibly doubled due to misalignment in the die hubbing process, and while minor doubling occurs with relative frequency in many years and is often dismissed as machine doubling or die deterioration, the genuine doubled die variety from 1978D is clear, unmistakable, and incredibly rare, with only a few confirmed examples having surfaced in over 4 decades of searching, making it not just a high-value coin, but a numismatic unicorn of sorts for Lincoln cent enthusiasts. And when one of these coins appears in top condition, say, MS65 red or higher, it immediately draws national attention from coin dealers, auction houses, and private collectors, with past sales and offers reaching and even exceeding the $25,000 to $26,000 mark depending on condition and eye appeal, especially when the coin is slabbed and authenticated by top grading services like PCGS or NGC with a designation that confirms its double die variety. And part of the mystery and allure of this coin is just how few people are even aware it exists, since it's not officially listed in many mainstream guides and has only been documented in select advanced era coin references and shared among the tight-knit community of die variety specialists, making it one of the best-kept secrets of the Lincoln cent series and a dream target for roll hunters and estate sale explorers who understand what to look for, because this is the kind of coin that, if unrecognized, could easily pass through countless hands and never be appreciated for what it is, until one person, with knowledge and sharp eyes, finally sees the doubled devices under a loupe or microscope and realizes they've discovered a needle in the haystack. And it's not just the doubling that can add value to a 1978 cent, because that year also saw a number of off-metal strikes and transitional planchet errors, including examples of cents struck on foreign coin planchets, or on misfed blanks intended for other U.S. denominations such as the Roosevelt dime, and these coins, while even rarer than the doubled die, are known to exist and have been verified by major grading services, and because they often look just similar enough to pass unnoticed, their discovery is typically reserved for collectors who take the time to weigh and measure their coins or test the metallic composition, often finding they have something weighing significantly less than the standard 3.11 grams of a bronze cent, or that exhibits strange coloration, planchet size differences, or edge detail inconsistencies, and one confirmed example of a 1978 cent struck on a foreign planchet, believed to be an Ecuadorian 1 centavo blank, was certified and sold for more than $20,000 due to its extreme rarity, and similar examples have been rumored but remain unconfirmed due to legal concerns, limited exposure, or private sale agreements. And then there are the multi-era coins from that year. Specimens that feature not just one but multiple mistakes, such as off-center strikes combined with broad strikes, brockages, or die cap features, and when these happen to a coin from a year already known for scarce varieties, like 1978, their rarity multiplies, and their value skyrockets, especially if the coin maintains strong eye appeal and shows full design elements. And if all of that weren't enough, the market for era coins in general has been exploding in recent years thanks to online marketplaces, social media, YouTube influencers, and auction sites that bring even obscure coins to the attention of millions of collectors worldwide. Meaning that awareness of coins like the 1978 D double die or 1978 off-metal strike is growing rapidly, and with that growing demand comes increasing competition, higher sale prices, and a heightened urgency among collectors to check and recheck their hoards, coin rolls, and inherited collections for any possible examples. And while the average 1978 Lincoln cent in circulated condition will always be worth a penny, the story dramatically changes when the right set of errors, composition, anomalies, or die varieties come into play, and with only a few known examples of the most valuable varieties, any new discovery could easily command $26,000 or more depending on its grade, provenance, and rarity. And this is why collectors are still scouring rolls and searching change every day, not just for the famous errors like the 1955 double die or the 1969 SDDO, but for the lesser-known but equally valuable anomalies like the 1978 D double die or off-metal strikes, which have proven time and again to be the sleeper hits of modern U.S. numismatics. And so the next time you come across a 1978 Lincoln cent, don't dismiss it as just another old penny. Instead, look closely at the date, inspect the lettering, weigh it if you can, and if anything looks off, unusual, or doubled, get it checked by a professional. Because you just might be holding a tiny copper coin that turns out to be worth $26,000 or more, making your discovery not just exciting, but life-changing. And as we continue down this extraordinary path through the world of rare and high-value Lincoln cents, our focus sharpens now on a coin minted in the same pivotal year as our previous entry but bearing the D mint mark of Denver. Yes, the 1981 D Lincoln 1 cent, a coin that, under rare and specific circumstances, has sold for an incredible $19,000 or more, adding yet another chapter to the growing list of pennies that defy their face value through a combination of minting anomalies, transitional quirks, and era-based rarity. And while the Denver Mint was well known for its high volume, high-speed production of circulating coinage, particularly during the inflationary crunch and metal cost concerns of the late 1970s and early 1980s, that very speed and pressure often led to the conditions in which mint errors could occur. And although the vast majority of 1981 D Lincoln cents are common, unremarkable copper coins weighing about 3.11 grams, it is within this immense production run that several extraordinarily rare and valuable varieties have been identified, foremost among them the sharply double-die verse DDO variety, which has been verified on only a tiny number of 1981 D cents, and which has now become one of the most desirable and elusive double dies in the modern Lincoln cent series. And what makes this particular DDO so valuable, commanding prices up to and exceeding $19,000 when certified in high mint state red grades, is the clarity and strength of the doubling, most prominently visible in the inscriptions, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the 4 digits of the date, 1981, with the doubling on some examples being bold enough to be identified without magnification, although a 10x loop or microscope does reveal its full breathtaking detail. And these are not examples of machine doubling or die deterioration doubling, which are relatively common and typically carry little to no added value, but rather true double dies, the result of a misalignment between the hub and the die during the die creation process at the Denver Mint, causing the design elements to be imprinted onto the working die more than once at slightly different angles, a phenomenon that creates these spectacular and dramatic visual anomalies that collectors find so irresistible. and while many doubled dies from earlier years such as 1955, 1969s, and 1972 are well known and widely documented, the 1981 DDDO is considered far rarer, both in number known and in its appearance in public auctions, which is why when a high-grade red example, especially one graded MS65RD or higher by PCGS or NGC, hits the market, it commands immediate attention and aggressive bidding from both advanced collectors and investors seeking to acquire one of the rarest DDOs from the post-1960 copper cent era. And it's not just doubling that makes the 1981 D Lincoln cent noteworthy, because during this time the mint was in the early stages of transitioning away from the long established bronze alloy to a new copper-plated zinc composition, which would officially begin in 1982 but was already undergoing testing and limited experimentation in 1981, and due to this, there are credible instances of 1981 D Lincoln cents having been struck on experimental copper-plated zinc planchets, which are significantly lighter, approximately 2.5 grams rather than the standard 3.11 grams, and can easily be overlooked due to their similar appearance, yet when weighed properly and confirmed via metallurgical analysis, these transitional errors become incredibly desirable due to their rarity, controversy, and historical significance as part of the U.S. Mint's effort to navigate economic realities without disrupting public confidence in the coinage system, and when one of these transitional planchet errors is paired with a doubled die variety, or discovered in uncirculated red condition with a strong strike, it can fetch up to $19,000 or more, depending on condition, certification, and market timing. And then there are the additional high-value anomalies from this year and mint, including 1981 D Lincoln cents struck on foreign coin planchets or off-metal blanks, such as those intended for foreign coin contracts that the Denver Mint was fulfilling during that era. And these planchets, when mistakenly used to strike Lincoln cents, produce coins that are slightly underweight, oddly colored, or slightly off-sized, resulting in coins that are instantly suspect to the trained eye of a variety hunter or error collector. And authenticated examples of these off-metal errors, particularly those still exhibiting full design detail and certified by major grading services, have sold for many thousands of dollars, occasionally approaching or surpassing the $19,000 mark, especially if the coin combines multiple rare features such as misstrikes, die breaks, or planchet flaws. And let's not overlook the repunched mint mark (RPM) varieties that have also emerged from the Denver Mint in 1981, as during that year the mint marks were still hand-punched into the dies, meaning that slight misalignments, rotations, or double impressions of the D mint mark can be found on a small percentage of coins, and while many RPMs are minor, the boldest and most clearly visible examples, particularly those with doubling in different directions or with overlapping impressions, can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars in the right grade, and are often aggressively pursued by specialists building complete RPM registries. And when these mint mark anomalies are paired with high-grade red surfaces and strong strike quality, their appeal only grows. And what makes the 1981 D Lincoln cent particularly fascinating is how deceptively common it seems. Billions were minted, and it remains a staple in circulation and old coin jars across the country. Yet buried among those countless billions are these rare, almost mythical varieties that most people will never see, and the possibility that such a coin could be discovered in an overlooked roll, a forgotten bank bag, or even a childhood coin folder keeps collectors energized and searching every day. And as more collectors become aware of the true value lurking in common dates through YouTube, social media, and online communities, the demand for high-value error coins like the 1981 D doubled die or transitional planchet strike continues to rise, pushing auction prices ever higher and solidifying the reputation of the 1981 D Lincoln cent as one of the great hidden treasures of modern U.S. numismatics. And so if you ever come across a 1981 D Lincoln cent with unusual weight, strange coloring, noticeable doubling, or an oddly placed mint mark, don't pass it off as ordinary, because that humble coin could be one of the rarest and most valuable pennies of the copper era, potentially worth $19,000 or more, waiting patiently to reward the sharp eye and patient diligence of a collector who knows exactly what to look for. And now, as we move deeper into the heart of the copper-plated Lincoln cent era, we come upon yet another extraordinary and high-value discovery in the world of rare pennies, a coin minted just a few years after the pivotal composition change, which, despite being struck in immense numbers and generally viewed as ordinary pocket change, hides one of the most dramatic and valuable double-die varieties ever produced in the modern numismatic era, the 1984 Lincoln 1 cent, a coin that in a very specific and visually striking error form has sold for up to $16,000 or more. And what makes this coin so compelling is that the error involved is not subtle, not hidden, not something you need a microscope to see. In fact, it's one of the boldest and most immediately recognizable double-die errors of the entire Lincoln cent series. Involving a doubled profile of Abraham Lincoln himself on the obverse of the coin, a feature so dramatic that even casual collectors, if shown what to look for, can easily identify it without magnification, and it is this distinctive, unmistakable doubling that has propelled the 1984 DDO, or double-die obverse, to the top of many collectors' lists as one of the must-have errors in all of modern U.S. coinage. And to understand the significance of this variety, we need to first understand the process that created it, which involves a misalignment in the die hubbing process, where the working die received multiple impressions of the design from the hub that were not perfectly aligned, causing certain design elements to appear doubled on the coin struck with that die, and in the case of the 1984 cent, the most obvious doubling appears on Lincoln's chin, jawline, ear, and even portions of his neck, resulting in what's commonly referred to by collectors as the doubled ear variety. Because the doubling of Lincoln's earlobe is so clear and pronounced that it almost looks like he has two ears, a feature that instantly grabs the attention of anyone examining the coin and makes it one of the easiest major double-die errors to spot without the need for advanced tools or expertise. And what's truly fascinating is that while this error is relatively well known in advanced collector circles, it has still flown under the radar for many casual collectors and the general public, which means there is a very real chance that examples are still out there, circulating in old rolls, hiding in forgotten penny jars, or languishing in unexamined coin folders, just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. And when one of these coins is found in high mint state condition, especially MS65 red or higher, it can command serious money at auction, with prices reaching as high as $10,000 to $16,000 depending on strike quality, eye appeal, and market demand. And what adds to its rarity and top grade is that 1984 cents were copper-plated zinc coins, having made the transition in 1982 from the older bronze alloy, and this zinc core made them more susceptible to corrosion, toning, blistering, and spotting, issues that often plague high-grade examples and make clean, red, sharply struck coins with no surface problems especially hard to come by, and that scarcity of pristine examples, when paired with one of the most visually compelling die varieties in modern U.S. mint history, creates the perfect recipe for a five-figure coin. And it's not just the DDO that gives the 1984 cent its value potential, because like other years, this issue is known to include a number of secondary errors and anomalies, including off-center strikes, broad strikes, die cracks, cuds, and even struck-through debris errors, any of which can add further numismatic interest and increase the value of the coin depending on the severity and clarity of the error. And when multiple anomalies appear on a single coin, for instance, a 1984 double die with a retained cut or dramatic die crack, the coin can become not just rare, but one of a kind, commanding strong premiums from variety collectors and error specialists alike. And another layer of intrigue comes from the fact that the 1984 DDO error is not known to exist with a Denver Mint mark, which means every genuine 1984 doubled ear variety was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, narrowing the field for collectors and intensifying the competition for certified high-grade specimens. And it's no surprise that third-party grading companies like PCGS, NGC, and Annex have slabbed and labeled these coins as major varieties, making them more recognizable in the marketplace and increasing their visibility among auction houses and registry set participants. And as interest in rare modern coins continues to grow thanks to digital communities, educational YouTube channels, TikTok numismatics influencers, and online marketplaces like eBay and great collections. The value of coins like the 1984 DDO continues to climb, with bidding wars erupting over the cleanest, brightest, and boldest. Examples, particularly those with deep red luster and crisp detail, and while the majority of 1984 cents are worth little more than face value, the existence of such a powerful and dramatic error reminds collectors everywhere that even the most common years can hide extraordinary surprises, and that even among billions of coins, a tiny handful can carry immense value simply because of a momentary misalignment at the mint decades ago, and that's what makes hunting coins like the 1984 double die so exciting, because the odds may be long, but the payout is real, and for the collector who spots the second earlobe, or the shadowed jawline, or the doubled profile where Lincoln seems to echo himself, the reward could be not only a rare coin, but one worth $16,000 or more, a true modern treasure hidden in plain sight among the pennies of everyday life. And as we journey further into the fascinating landscape of rare and valuable Lincoln cents, we land next on a coin that has puzzled collectors, sparked endless discussions among error enthusiasts, and turned up a discovery so subtle that it eludes even trained eyes unless you know precisely what to look for. The 1988 D Lincoln 1 cent, a coin that, like so many others we've discussed, normally wouldn't raise any eyebrows. With billions struck at the Denver Mint that year, but hidden among the ordinary are a handful of exceptional anomalies that have sold for as much as $12,000, placing this unassuming copper-plated zinc cent in the spotlight of serious numismatics. And what elevates the 1988 D penny to elite status isn't just a typical strike error or even a major double die. It's something far rarer and rooted in a quiet transition at the U.S. Mint involving a design detail so small, most people wouldn't even notice it: the presence of a reverse design element from an earlier generation of coins, creating what is known in the coin collecting world as a transitional reverse design error. And to explain why this is such a big deal, we need to go back to 1982, when not only did the composition of the Lincoln cent change from 95% copper to copper-plated zinc, but the U.S. Mint also began phasing in subtle modifications to the master hub used for the Lincoln Memorial Reverse, including updates to the designer's initials, FG, which stand for Frank Gasparo, the artist responsible for the memorial design, and specifically, the font, spacing, and positioning of the initials were altered in subsequent years to reflect the new hub, and by 1988, all working dies were supposed to be using the updated reverse hub with the modern FG configuration that features sharp, clear initials spaced further from the base of the memorial. But in a very limited number of 1988 D cents, the old reverse design was accidentally used, likely due to a mix-up during the hubbing process, and these coins were struck using a reverse die that featured the older version of the FG initials, with the telltale signs being the close proximity of the G to the base of the Lincoln Memorial and the distinct shape of the initials. And while that may sound like a small technical issue, it's actually a major error in numismatics, classified as a transitional design variety, because it involves using a die that was supposed to have been retired or replaced, and in doing so, the Mint unintentionally created a split identity in the coin's design that could only be noticed by someone trained to spot the minute differences in die characteristics. And once collectors discovered the existence of this reverse anomaly, now commonly referred to as the 1988 D reverse of 1988 on a reverse of 1989 hub, or simply the 1988 D RDV005 transitional reverse, a new wave of excitement swept through the Lincoln cent collecting community, with variety hunters, roll searchers, and high-end collectors all clamoring to find one of these rare specimens, and because they are so difficult to detect without magnification and specific reference material, very few have surfaced over the years, with the known population remaining remarkably small, which adds to the coin's value and mystique. And when one of these coins is discovered in high-grade uncirculated red condition, particularly MS65RD or better, and is confirmed by a trusted third-party grader like PCGS or NGC, its value can soar dramatically, with auction sales recorded as high as $10,000 to $12,000, and in some cases even higher depending on timing, provenance, and registry set demand. And what's especially interesting about this coin is how its value comes not from dramatic visual doubling or off-center striking, but from an incredibly subtle diagnostic detail that tells a much bigger story about how the mint operated during transitional periods, how dies were reused, and how even minor oversights in die assignments could lead to numismatic treasures decades later. And that's what makes the 1988 transitional reverse cent so fascinating. It's a coin that rewards knowledge, precision, and patient searching, because unless you're aware of the design differences in the FG initials and know what to compare, you'd likely never catch it, meaning that countless examples could still be hiding in collections, rolls, or even pocket change, silently waiting for someone with the right knowledge to recognize what they've found. And like so many transitional era coins, the 1988 RDV005 is a testament to the quiet drama of coin production, where design decisions made behind the scenes and unnoticed by the general public can, decades later, become defining elements of rarity and collector demand. And as numismatic tools become more accessible, through online photo comparisons, mobile apps, coin grading forums, and high-definition imagery, the chances of these coins being discovered are increasing, which, in turn, fuels the market and drives demand even higher, especially for examples in pristine red condition with no carbon spots, minimal contact marks, and full details, because the copper-plated zinc planchets used in 1988 are notoriously prone to spotting and corrosion, and finding a clean, high-grade survivor with this specific reverse error is incredibly challenging, further justifying its five-figure price tag when one is found. And in the broader context of Lincoln cent collecting, the 1988 transitional reverse is one of the most intriguing post-1982 discoveries, bridging the gap between modern minting and old-school hub transitions, showing us that even as the mint moved toward more modern technology, the potential for rare and valuable slip-ups remained. So the next time you come across a 1988 penny, don't just glance at the obverse and toss it aside, turn it over. Grab a loop, and look carefully at those tiny initials at the base of the Lincoln Memorial, because if the G is tucked tightly up against the steps, you just might be holding one of the rarest Lincoln cents of the late 20th century, a coin with a market value of $12,000 or more, hidden in plain sight and waiting to reward the patience, precision, and sharp eye of a dedicated collector.